Hello, Julie here, and welcome to my YouTube channel. If you're new here, welcome, and I hope you enjoy the video. Now today I am going to be working on the next 4 prompts in the Junk Journal January 2025 challenge. So that's depth, embossed, tuck spot and antique. So hopefully by the end of this video I will be able to tick them off. Now this is the journal that I'm working in. It's a nice little tab bound journal, and I will put a link to a playlist in the description box for all of the projects that I will be doing in this challenge, including making this journal. Okay, so today's challenge. Right. I thought that for my tuck spot, let's start with that. I've got this paper, or it's actually cardstock, and I've layered it on top of each other so it's well and truly sturdy enough. And I'm going to make, say, 3.5 inches. How wide are my pages? I think my pages are about 5 3/4. Any page. Yeah, 5 3/4. So if I make it 3.5, yep, that will be fine. So let's cut this down to 3.5 inches. And then I'm going to cut that down to, say, about maybe 2.5. Yep. I'll cut 2 pieces at 2.5. I'll probably cut one of these down a bit, but we'll start with those 2 pieces the same size. Now I want to make tags out of these, so what size little thing do I want? Probably that size there. So let's cut them. Okay, and I will ink around them as well. So I'll fast forward this. Okay, now my next thing is I'm going to emboss this one. And I'm going to use my Sizzix 3D Mosaic Gems embossing folder. So with this 3D embossing folder, I'm hoping to get the depth. So that's one of our prompts, depth. So with the 3D folders, you get more depth than you get with the normal embossing folders. So I'm going to take this to my Big Shot and run that through. Okay, so I decided to emboss both pieces. Now I'm going to take my ink pad and just run over the top of that to help that stand out a little. Makes a bit of difference, doesn't it? Okay, so that gives us some depth on our tags. Now I'm going to attach that to that so that it steps back like this. So let me get some glue. Take the stopper out first. Where do I actually want this? About like that. So if I put some glue on here, like so, and just around the bottom here. I should just about get that right. Okay. Let's just give that a bit of a rub and let it dry a second or two. And then I'm going to trim that off. I want to trim that off level with the end of that. Okay, now that is going to create my tuck spot, like so. Do I want to put it on that page, or do I have another page I'd rather put it on? I think the page will be fine. Yeah, just put it on here, I think. Okay. Looks like that's not that straight. So perhaps that's not a good one because I need a proper corner. This one will do. There we go. Do it on here. Alright, so now I'm going to stick that there, and that is my tuck spot. So we've got depth, we've got embossed, and we've got a tuck spot. All in one. So let's glue this. In place. Right, now the other thing I wanted to do is embellish this a little. So I have got now, antique is a requirement here, so I have some antique lace here, and I'm going to use some of that to embellish on here. But I'll work that out in a minute. First of all, I want to do another embossing. So this time I'm going to do, so that's what they call dry embossing, that one. And now I'm going to do some heat embossing, and I'm going to emboss this flower. So there's lots of ways you can do heat embossing. You can, I'm using my Versamark watermark stamp pad, so this is excellent for embossing. Sorry about the colour, it's not normally that colour, it's normally white, as you can see there, but somehow I managed to get colour onto mine. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure that my flower is covered with this ink. It's a sticky ink and it doesn't dry quickly, so that's why you're able to heat emboss with it. You're able to add your embossing powder. I want to make sure I get complete coverage over this, right out to the edges. I'm hoping that it looks like it's getting on there, doesn't it? It's a bit shiny and so on. Now, I haven't got organised with this. I'm just grabbing a bit of copy paper out of my printer, and now I'm going to use some clear embossing powder. So I'm just using clear finish, and I'm just going to sprinkle that all over my flower. Now, as I was saying before, there's lots of different ways you can do embossing. You can stamp an image using your stamp pad, your embossing stamp pad, and then put the embossing powder over the top of that. Sorry about my phone. You can get embossing ink pens. You can use that. So you saw me there, I've just tipped the embossing powder off of my floral image, and now I'm just tipping the embossing powder, or the excess embossing powder, back into the jar. And yeah, as I was saying, you get some embossing pens, and you can draw images, you can outline things, you can you know, just say for example that flower, you could just put the ink in the centre, or you could just highlight certain petals, or any of those sorts of things. You can get embossing powder in every colour you can think of. I have got heaps and heaps of different colours, because when I first started heat embossing, you know, that was the thing. But now, if you're starting out fresh, I wouldn't bother. I would colour my papers with my ink pads or whatever, and then apply clear embossing powder. Now I'm going to heat emboss this. I'm going to turn the volume off, because I hate it when you can hear heat guns, etc, etc, and I'm also going to fast forward it, so hopefully I'll be back very shortly. Okay, so there we go. You can, while you know, you can now, if you wanted to, you can see that that's a bit dimply. Can you see that? If you wanted to, you could give another coat of the ink over the top and apply another coat of the clear embossing powder. You can also buy ultra thick clear, which puts a very thick coat of gloss on there. But I'm quite happy with that. That's you know, that's done the job. It's made it it's much firmer, so you know, it gives it strength. If you've got something that's fiddly, like some of those flowers, or some flowers that I've got die cuts for, they got the flower on and then they've got a very fine stem. If you wanted to make them more secure, you could do this same technique to them as well. Alright, so we've got our flower embossed, so that's two different types of embossing. We've got the dry embossing and then the heat embossing. So we can get rid of that now. So, this is going to be a pretty quick little project actually, isn't it? So we've got our tuck, we've got our antique lace. How big is that on there? I'm thinking that I might actually even let that hang out over the edge. So I'm going to cut that off to about the same length as my pocket. If it's not the same, I'm not too worried about it. And I'm going to attach that on there like that, so that it's poking out the edge. So it's sort of like a bit of a tab. And we can still see our embossing on here. Okay, so let's do that. You can use, or let me make sure I've got the right side up. You can use Fabri-Tac, you can use Barely Arts, you know, you can use whatever glue you are comfortable with for this sort of thing, for sticking fabric down, but I've found that this art glitter glue works perfectly for fabric. I have got Fabri-Tac up there, but oh, well, I've got to reach for that extra, don't I? Okay. Oh, I don't want glue out there, do I? It's easy to get carried away, isn't it? Okay, so let's pop that there. I don't want too much hanging over. Let's see if I can get that. take it off the back. Otherwise I'll be sticking my 2 pages together, won't I? I don't get that all off. Okay, now for a bit of extra dimension or extra depth, I could mount this on some foam tape, or I could add it to a piece of cardboard and then stick that down. That would give me extra depth. I'll do that. Let me find some cardboard now. Okay, I've got this backing of a writing pad. So I'm going to stick that down onto that. Now the back of this is just the same normal paper, and by embossing the front you don't affect the back at all, unless you happen to get a little bit of ink pad and embossing powder to the back, but generally not. Okay, so I'm going to pop that on there, and I'm going to pop something a bit heavy on that for a minute, because the heat embossing does sort of make your image curl up a little bit. So I'm going to let that dry for a few minutes, and then I'm going to fussy cut around it, and then I'll be back. Okay, so I've done that, so that's mounted on some cardboard, so that's some extra depth for my page. And now I'm just going to pop that on there like so. So how's everybody going with their journal January prompts? Some of them are a bit tricky, aren't they? And I'm going to just pop that down there like that. Now, the other day I made some acetate pieces. I made a few different ones just for my stash, and I'm going to use this one in here. But I thought that what I've done is I've got some tickets and a fussy cut flower, or half a fussy cut flower, that I have also heat embossed, and I'm going to add these onto my ticket. So I'm going to pop one down there. So let's put some glue on there, and both sides, because it's going to wrap around the tag. The trouble with using transparencies, and I love them, is that you can see through them. So, you know, if you put something on the front, you've got to make sure you've got something on the back that's worth looking at. So you've either got to double-side it, or yeah, ink it. I suppose you could ink it. It doesn't matter what I do, I always end up getting glue on my acetate. Look at that. Right. Okay, and then I've got this one here that I thought I would just put along there like that. So I'm still leaving my acetate windows fairly open, so we can see through it. So I'll try not to squish the glue out this time, so I won't go as close. Won't go as close to the edges. So go there. Like so. I think I might have actually managed to do that without getting glue everywhere. And I thought I would put this on here, which is the best way for it to sit that way. I thought I'd just pop that on there. Alright, should have that weight on that. Put that on there to keep it down. Now I'm just going to grab some labels. Here we go. Now I want a tiny label on this. Something like that there. I want a little bit of lace or something behind it. Let's have a look at a bit of, I've got some hessian here. Is that too big? That is too big. Probably more like this, I think. Something that is there but is not heavy and hiding the detail of what's under there. And just a little bit. Just fray that out a little. Very easy to do. A little bit of glue. Pop that on. And then this. Did I ink that? I might have got distracted. Okay, now on the back of this I thought I would put a label as well. Now probably want a bit bigger label for that. Let's have a look what we've got here. Want it that way? Why not? Okay, and should we put a bit more cheesecloth on that? Yes, that will be good. Now this has got the selvage on it there, so I need to cut that off. Ink around this. Glue. I'll put it that way, put it about there, and that will be that. Now, do I want to put a label on there, across here or something? I don't want to put it across the acetate, as I've said before. These are just stamps that I've stamped onto some coffee dyed paper, or yeah, that's coffee dyed paper. It's too fat. Could do that with a little bit of cheesecloth on that. So one of the good things about having, you know, neutral things in your stash like this is when you're doing something in your journal, it saves you a lot of time. That's pretty raggedy, isn't it? Okay, let's stick that down there. ink around this. Okay, right, let's clear the decks a little here. Okay, so let's have a look at what we've got. So today, one of our prompts is depth, so I have got depth in this by doing the embossing, the 3D embossing on the tags, and also by mounting my flower onto cardboard so it stands up and gives more depth to the embellishment. Embossed, so I dry emboss that and I heat emboss that, and I heat emboss these pieces on my tag as well, so that's embossed. Tuck spot, well that's what this is. We've got stuck down there and there, and we can stick our tag in there like so. So that's our tuck spot. And antique, I've got my antique lace on there. Yes. Okay, so that ticks off all of our prompts up to the 8th. So next time we've got hidden, trim, magazine and overlap. So we'll have to start thinking about what we're going to do for that one. For a little more depth, I decided to add some Vicky Bouton Creative FX iridescent glaze through a stencil onto my page. Yeah, I hope you can see that there. I hope it's showing up. So that's just a little bit of extra. Once that dries, I might also go in with the same stencil and some ink and just put some ink here and there in there as well, just to give that a bit more of a lift. So there we go, that's my video for today. I've done my 4 prompts, and I'm more than happy with that page. I'll do something else on here, that's not going to stay blank. Okay, thank you for joining me, and I hope you've enjoyed the video, and if you have, please give me a thumbs up, that would be great. And I hope you can join me when I post my next video. Okay, bye.